Hello, everybody. I'm back. It's another Thursday night with Minutes with Milo live on YouTube. And I hope somebody shows up to watch. And if they don't, I'm still going to talk to the camera, send it out over the low voltage circuit, and maybe somebody will watch it. But anyway, welcome. If you're just stumbling on this, you're not going to stumble on it live, I don't guess. I don't know. YouTube there may be a way for people just to be surfing YouTube, looking through stuff, and get the live announcement. I don't know. More than likely, if you stumble across it, it's already, not live, recorded, saved, archived. Is this thing? Hey, Roberto. So I guess it's going out on the air. Let me just double check my little screen here, or he may have just shown up. Yep, there it is. All right. So that part of it's working. I'm gonna reset my counter here. It's going bonkers. All right, that looks better. You just wipe all the numbers away. It's like, you know, gas mileage. If you do away with your trip odometer, you're getting like 1,000 miles to the gallon, right? Ignorance is bliss, as they say. Back to, if you find it on YouTube, it's not live probably, but that's okay. Watch all 200 and, what is it, 42 something now, maybe? Watch 5. I challenge you. I challenge you to watch 5 of my live streams recorded that are no longer live. All right, so I picked this topic. It's something that I've wondered about, and in my infinite wisdom, I understood myself that I wouldn't probably be able to understand it even with research. Not what I do for the show, but I mean, deep research, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's people out there that say they understand it, but I mean, I'm not computer stupid. I'm not really computer smart, but I don't understand this digital coin. Oh, well, I'll take that back. I guess I understand the principle behind it, but I don't understand at all how it's this great thing. I just don't understand it. I guess I'm too old school. Oh, Bitcoin mining is probably not a, probably a totally different subject than what I'm about to say, and it leads, my subject now leads into Bitcoin mining, but the whole, forget about the mining part of it. Digital currency, I don't understand because there's no money involved. That's kind of the blows my mind. All right, let's say I have a checking account at a regular brick and mortar bank, and I can do online transactions. I can pay stuff online. I can pay with never touching cash or money or checks or any of that stuff. So to me, I understand that. I have a reserve amount of ones and zeros, digits, that the bank says is real money. I can go and get pocket money, and it reduces the amount of ones and zeros in my account, my digital currency. So I understand that. I have real money that backs my digital transactions. And I assume somewhere I'm missing this step. If I have enough cash money to buy one Bitcoin, where does that money go? Who do I pay to to convert my real cash into one Bitcoin? And how do they get paid? Through my digital banking, I assume. Or I pay a broker. I know there's brokers. And there's brokerage fees and all that kind of stuff. And one of the other things that blows my mind, and I'll get to the mining part of it, just bear with me because it fluctuates in value. The Bitcoin fluctuates in value. Otherwise, people wouldn't buy Bitcoin at, I'm just going to use round numbers because my brain doesn't work very well. They buy $1,000 Bitcoin. One Bitcoin, let's just say they purchase one Bitcoin for $1,000. In 2 or 3 weeks, it may be worth $1,200. That's pretty good. But in another 2 weeks, it may only be worth $1,150. So here's part of my question. And I assume it's instantaneous, but according to what I'm reading, a little bit of what I'm reading in this Bitcoin mining, is verification of the fact that I have the Bitcoin and I'm paying Roberto with this part of this Bitcoin may take days. What happens is the value goes down and Robert gets a fraction of the Bitcoin to reimburse him for what I've bought, but now it's not worth as much. Does he come back to me and say, you gave me, 1/100th of a Bitcoin to purchase this, anti-ragdoll that I had, but now that doesn't cover it. I'm going to need more of the Bitcoin to cover my cost. Maybe that's the disconnect. I don't understand it. How can it go up in value? And I guess in some ways I need to look at it, or maybe that's wrong, to look at it like a bank paying me interest. Right? Money going up and down, interest going up and down. But my original money is still there. Bitcoin could go, if I pay $1,000 for Bitcoin and something bad happens, and I don't know how it would, because I don't know enough about what makes it valuable, it drops to $900. All right, so Robert says he's suspect of the business, and I am too. But Doge, or Doge, you can make, I forget what they call them, a joke Bitcoin. And it's just like, putting your face on a fake penny. It's not worth anything. This is just my understanding. It's not really worth anything except what it might be worth to you because it has my face on it. Just like buying, somebody's, a Van Halen shirt at a concert. Somebody that doesn't like Van Halen wouldn't pay the $30 to you to get the t-shirt, but to you it might be worth the 30. So these fake, I won't call them fake, but you call them a joke coin. I think that's it. It's more of a novelty. It's not like being used as transactions. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the way that works. And there's a certain name given to those. And it's just almost like a promotion. Like I've got an Ollie's coin and I put it in my pocket and I carry it around. And if I go to Ollie's and I say, can I have my 25 cents back because I purchased this, a week ago, and I don't like Ollie's anymore. But it's not like currency that you could trade to go to the car wash with Ollie coins and get a car wash. So there are some, I'm going to just call them, I guess, promotional kind of coins like that people buy just because they're, represent something to them. I don't know. But they're not used, those aren't used to pay your light bill or, you know, buy, you know, sugar candy off the internet. I don't know. That's just the way I understand it. So, uh, back, and I'm saying Bitcoin because to me that's like a lot of people say instead of soft drink, everybody calls it a Coke, even though they may want a Sprite. It's just I want to say Bitcoin because that's the only one that I really know about. So that's part of what I don't understand about this digital currency is somewhere along the line, to me, it's like the United States went off the gold standard. Now they can just print all the crap they want because there's nothing technically there to back it up. You were on the gold standard, if you had $500 billion worth of gold, then that's all the money you could circulate anywhere. That was you just couldn't print $501 billion because you didn't have the gold to back it up. That's the part I don't understand about the Bitcoin is where, if I have a Bitcoin and I want to get cash for it, I have to go to a broker and say I want to cash in, and Bitcoin's the reason I say you call it a Bitcoin, you think you'd buy something for 2 or 3 coins. No, the Bitcoin's worth what Jim and I told me here a little while ago as I was asking it about it. Because it's the only way, I can research this and get reasonable, reliable information out of it. What is 1 Bitcoin worth now? Okay. So right now, market value of Bitcoin's trading around $67,000. So if you wanted to buy a $500 sweater off of eBay using Bitcoin, you divide, $500 into 67,000, and whatever fraction that is of a Bitcoin, that's how much you would use. That's the way it works. So just like a dollar is broken down into 100 cents, and apparently with Bitcoin, you could break a dollar down into 1,000 cents. And you just split each one up a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit more, and that's how much it's worth down to the minute factor. So break the door off my computer. That would not be good. I'd be mad. See, that's the thing I don't understand. You might have bought 1 Bitcoin, heaven forbid, for $30,000, and it's like I said, it's almost like a stock. To me, you buy stock in a company. Company does well. Your digital money goes up, the value goes up, but the only way to realize that is to then sell the stock off in the exchange and then get real money in your bank account, go down to your bank and say, I want to pull out $10,000 or whatever it might be and put it in your pocket and bury it in jars in your backyard. So maybe all this is, it would have been a great investment in 2009, just like, investing in gold in 2009 would have been, you probably could have, quintupled whatever your money by that, that's what blows my mind. even 5 years ago, if you'd have bought gold, you probably would have quadruple your money now. Possibly. I mean, it's gone up so much, and that's Bitcoin's going up. But yeah, knowing my luck, I'd sink my life savings into, a Bitcoin and a half or whatever it is. And the very next day they say, well, this is just a big scam and it's illegal and they're not worth, the electricity that you put in to create them. And speaking of creating them, plays into the mining. Okay, so my original question to Gemini was, what is Bitcoin mining? Because you hear about it on the news about, these mining sites coming up in, Podunk, Virginia, sucking all the electricity off the grid to mine Bitcoin. There's got to be big money in it. I mean, all right, let's do this. Get this show on the road, buddy. That doesn't work it. That doesn't twerk it. Here we go. Get me over there. Ooh, put that there. Do this. Scooch it over. Scooch it over. Boom. All right. So let's get up here. All right. So I don't really like its answer. And I'll tell you why, because I see a lot of it. It painted me a broad picture, which I didn't ask it very specific question. Just what is Bitcoin mining? So it gives me the wide version, and then as you read it and more questions form in your mind, you ask it about, well, what's this and what that, and then it starts to give you more and more specific information about what you're asking. So, and this is, I guess, AI's attempt at staying on track or on theme with this. So I asked her what Bitcoin mining was, because that's what you hear on the news. And it says, think of Bitcoin mining as the digital equivalent of mining for gold. Okay. But instead of using a pickaxe or a shovel, you're using a high-powered computer and complex math. At its core, mining serves two main purposes. Here's one I don't understand. Creating new Bitcoin and securing the entire network by verifying transactions. Verifying transactions I can kind of grasp, but through this process, maybe we'll get a glimpse of how it creates new Bitcoin. I just can't, I have a hard time wrapping around my brain of the fact that not one entity, not 5 entities, but thousands upon millions of entities create Bitcoin. That's the way it works, as I understand it. There's no one central Bitcoin producer. And just in this first sentence right here, I might as well just turn the computer off and go back and do something else, because I really don't understand how these Bitcoin miners create new Bitcoin. Maybe we'll find out. I don't know. Okay, so simple breakdown of how it works, it says. It can't make it simple enough for my brain. Bitcoin doesn't have a central bank. Got that. Keep the system. To keep the system running without a boss or a central bank, it relies on a global network of computers, miners, to act as auditors. Okay, so all these Bitcoin miners use their compute power and apparently special math or hard math or long math, multiple division, whatever math, to verify these transactions. And this is where, if I'm buying something off of eBay with Bitcoin, in my mind, how the price or its value may fluctuate between the time I click the buy button and the person on the other end of the transaction gets the portion of the Bitcoin. All right. So verification, step one. When people send Bitcoin, those transactions are gathered into a block. Miners use their hardware to verify that these transactions are legitimate. The sender actually has the money. When people send a Bitcoin, so this is not when I, as an individual, go somewhere on the computer, internet, and say, I want to buy 1/1000th of a Bitcoin. So, a 1/1000th of Bitcoin would be like $6,700. All right? My math, 1,000 times 67 would be $670. $6,000 times 1,000 would be $60,000. $60 times 1,000, 60,000. $60, $67. Let me get my daggone calculator out here, buddy boy. I said $67. So 67 times 1,000. Not 10,000, dummy. Yep, $67. All right, so I buy 1/1000th of a Bitcoin for $67. I guess at that point it's very rudimentary, and I do the typical transferring $67 to whoever this broker is that I'm buying the Bitcoin from. How do I know it's a legit Bitcoin? I may have just given that dude $67, somewhere in, Yahoo land, and they're just going, well, thank you very much. Cha-ching. Oh, you've got a Bitcoin. Don't worry about it. Buy whatever you want. Or, how do I know that that's real? Is this where the auditors also play a role? Because it says right there, when people send Bitcoin, not when they buy it. Can take months or even a year to mine one Bitcoin unless you have several high-end computers or a warehouse full. That's true. That's one of the things that we're going to look at, because that's part of the checks and balances of this Bitcoin deal. And who makes up the rules? I don't know. Okay. When people send Bitcoin, and maybe that's because if I'm buying it, somebody has to send it to me. All right. So that triggers this miners using their hardware to verify the transactions are legitimate. Basically, they somehow check that the sender, the person I'm buying it from, actually has money, or Bitcoin, I'm assuming. 2, mathematical lottery, step 2. To add that block to the official record, the blockchain miners must solve a complex computational puzzle. This is called proof of work. It's essentially a guessing game where computers try to find a specific hexadecimal number, a hash, I know what that is, that meets a certain criteria. So are they hacking the Bitcoin network? How are they? I don't understand. I don't understand. To add that block to the official record, who keeps the official record? Where's that stored? Since there's no central bank, who keeps all the records? You know, and they would probably say, well, they're just out there. Bull. Where are they? Who has them? How many people have them? How many computers have them? That's a question. And, you know, you hear these people all the time losing their Bitcoin because they lost their computer drive or they forgot the password or whatever it is, and now all that $67,000 in one Bitcoin's locked up in your drive. There's no getting it back. There's no way of, talking to the bank president and say, I am who I say I am. Give me my money. It's just gone. So the miners must solve a complex computational puzzle called the proof of work. It's essentially a guessing game where computers try to find a specific hexadecimal number that meets certain criteria. The reward. The first miner, or miners, I guess, to solve the puzzle wins. They get to add the block to the chain and are rewarded with newly minted Bitcoin and transaction fees paid by the users included in that block. So do you have to pay that every time you buy this sweater off of eBay to just use 1/1000th of a Bitcoin? You have to pay a fee every time. And I guess it's like banking fees. I mean, if I were to buy it out of my digital checking account, then there's got to be some kind of fees to pay for that transaction. All right, so key terms. Hash rate. The speed at which a computer can make guesses to solve the puzzle. Sounds like hacking. ASCII. Application-specific integrated circuit. Specialized hardware built only for mining. The halfling. Every 4 years, the amount of new Bitcoin rewarded to miners is cut in half to control inflation. Mining pool, a group of miners who combine their computing power to increase the chances of winning, then split the rewards. All right, let's just throw another thing out there. Pyramid scheme. Oh, I don't understand. Why is it controversial? Because I don't understand it. Mining requires a massive amount of electricity because thousands of powerful machines or computers are racing to solve the same puzzle simultaneously. While this makes the network incredibly secure, it's nearly impossible to hack the math. It has led to significant debates regarding the environmental impact. Okay, so they want Bitcoin to be secure. I understand that. But in just this very first couple of paragraphs, in my mind, which is very limited, it sounds like this is Bitcoin's only generated out of somebody being able to guess some type of hash number by hacking or brute force computer work to solve this incredibly difficult puzzle. Right. You have to invest real money to get started. And I'm going to assume that you have to go through some kind of Bitcoin broker or certified. But then who certifies the dude to sell the Bitcoin? Since there's no boss, there's no central bank, there's no one controlling it, according to this, no one controlling entity that says, yes, you know, Robert is certified to take money and to, you know, issue a Bitcoin. Because according to this, all the miners that are trying to hack the, you know, the hash are the only ones that generate a true Bitcoin to put it in the chain. And then once it's in the chain, then, you know, you have something to sell, I have something to buy. Okay. The reality check. Most mining is no longer something you can do profitably on a home laptop. It has become a massive industrial operation involving warehouses full of specialized gear. Why, let's see, would you like me to calculate the current block reward? Okay. Yes, I said. Great. Since we are in 2026, the Bitcoin landscape has evolved quite a bit. Here's a breakdown of the rewards and the difficulty that keeps the whole system from spinning out of control. The block reward, or the payday. As of right now, we are in the era following 2024 halving. They split it in half. Halving. The current reward is 3.125 blockchain BTCs. It doesn't tell me what that means. Per block. Blockchain credits. Market value. With Bitcoin trading around $67,300, a single block reward is worth roughly $210,000. I don't know. I don't know. How can you get paid $210,000 for verifying and therefore creating a block, a Bitcoin block in a blockchain that's only worth $67,300? All right, so the current reward is 3.125 blockchain BTC, whatever that means, per block. Blockchain credit, blockchain commission. Let's just see how that works. If this is right, $67,300 times 3.125. Yes, that's the way it works. $210,312.50. So as a miner, let's just play a game that I have, I control $7,000 or $7,000. 7,000 of the world's fastest blockchain mining computers. I'm just one person. So I own a warehouse. I've got 7,000 of these computers in there, maybe 700. I don't know. I have no idea. Let's say 700 of them. And I crack the puzzle on this one Bitcoin transaction. Excuse me. Just one of them. And get it put into the chain. I get $210,000. but it's only worth $67,000 on the open market. All right, the next milestone, the next halving, halfling, how the English language is really stupid, is expected in 2028, which will drop the reward to 1.562 in blockchain credits. So every, what did it say, every 8 years? Every 4 years. Every 4 years, they cut your commission. And that's what I'm going to call it, because if I create it, if I do the math and I crack the puzzle, then I get paid the reward, and then every 4 years that reward gets cut in half. So in 2028, to do the same work, oh, wait a minute, okay. Instead of getting 3.125, I'm only getting 1.5625. But if in the next 2 years, the value of a Bitcoin goes from $67,000 to, $200,000, I'm getting 1.5 Bitcoin credits, not on 67,000, but on 200,000. So even though the percentage, my reward is lower, if the value is higher, I can still make a lot of money. Why is that doing that? The percentage I get goes down, and I'm going to call it percentage because the rate goes down, but the value it's calculated against goes up. Then I'm still golden. All right, the difficulty adjustment, the thermostat. One of the most common questions is, if computers get faster every year, won't we mine all the Bitcoin too quickly? All right, so my brain's hurting because according to this, there's no boss, there's no central bank. Then how do they set a cap on the Bitcoin? How can you say if computers get faster every year, won't we mine all the Bitcoin too quickly? Well, has anybody set a cap on the total number of Bitcoins there can be? Because if you look at this, if millions of people continue to sell or buy Bitcoin, and every time this happens, the miners go out and they mine Bitcoin, which creates the Bitcoin, then it should be a never-ending process, and there's never a cap on the amount of Bitcoin that could be out there. Because just by saying I want to buy Bitcoin starts this process into motion, and the miners create the Bitcoin when they crack this imaginary puzzle. I'm with you. Investing in imaginary currency seems reasonable. I don't understand it. And this is why I did the show. There's going to be people out there that go, that dude's an idiot. And it might be a fair statement. I'm not here to say that. I'm here to tell you I don't know enough about this. That's the reason I wanted to do a show on it, because just see if I can make you as frustrated about it as I am by not understanding. Now here's another, my 100th point for this little show. Maybe we're not supposed to understand it. Don't look behind the curtain, honey. Don't know. There's nothing behind the curtain. Focus on me. There's nothing going on behind the curtain. Keep them focused on, oh, you're making so much money. Don't worry about where it comes from. You're wealthy. You're rich. I don't, smoke and mirrors. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. Just focus on how rich you are and buy some more Bitcoin and let these guys mine it and get paid 3.12 times what it's worth to you to do it. All right. So Satoshi Nakamoto solved this with the difficulty adjustment. Apparently, this guy has uh, something to do with how Bitcoin works. I don't know who he is. It doesn't say who that is. But think of it like a game that automatically gets harder the better the players get. Bitcoin is programmed to produce exactly one block every 10 minutes. More statements I don't understand. Who programmed Bitcoin? And if one is generated every 10 minutes, there we go. Oh no. I'm in the dark, folks. Where'd it go? Is this it? That's it. Oh, remember when I said I didn't want to break the door off my computer? I hit this questionable USB port. Oh, crank it up, buddy. Crank it up. Turn the power up. Where is it? Boom, ba-da-doom, boom, boom, boom. All right, there we go. Back on. So, Bitcoin is programmed to produce exactly one block every 10 minutes. Every 2016 blocks, roughly every 2 weeks, the network looks at how long it took to mine that set of blocks. If blocks were being found every 8 minutes, that's too fast. The math puzzle gets harder. If blocks were taking 12 minutes that's too slow. The puzzle gets easier. All right. So, did you hear that big clunk? Did you hear it? That was my brain clicking on something in just this little paragraph right here. Just these 3 points on how it works. A possibility. A light must have, instead of the light going out, a light came on in my head. All right, hold on. Let's do this real quick. Oh, you turkey bird. Let's just go to whatever this is now. I don't know. This isn't Google. Who is this dude? All right. Wikipedia says this is the name used by the presumed pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, authored the Bitcoin white paper, and created and developed Bitcoin's original reference. Nakamoto said that the work of writing Bitcoin's code began in the second quarter of 2007. On 18th August 2008, he registered the domain name bitcoin.org and created a website at that address. On October 31st, published a white paper. So, all right, It just gets better and better, you know. So this Satoshi Nakamoto is the man behind the curtain. All right. So apparently there may not be one governing central bank, but there was a point of creation, which makes a little more sense in my brain. All right. So Bitcoin's a program that was written by a person or persons unknown, and it has all these checks and balances built into it. And it produces the gold that is trying to be discovered or mined. It's an Easter egg hunt. Bitcoin is an Easter egg hunt. Is that the way it works? Is Bitcoin an Easter egg hunt? Mom and Dad, Satoshi Nakamoto, Mom and Dad, create Easter eggs. All right, and they hide them in the yard, in the weeds, in the flower pots, in the trees, in the bushes, everywhere. They're hidden, but they're out there. The kids are the miners. All right, they're out there trying to solve the puzzle in the yard. How many eggs are out there? How can I find them? All right, so they go out there, and the people are trying to come up to the kids and say, hey, I need an egg. I'm going to buy me a sweater off eBay, and I need part of one of those eggs. So all the kids are out there running around trying to find eggs, and when they find an egg, at that point it becomes real. You don't know if the eggs are real until they're found. So then the kids grab an egg. Now it's real. Now it gets to add to the basket. The kids gather eggs in the basket. They run back to the people that need the eggs to buy the sweater off of eBay, and they get rewarded with chocolate treats, or 10 cents or whatever, transaction fees they get from giving or selling part of these eggs to the people that want to buy the sweater off of eBay. All right. So there's one egg or Bitcoin produced every 10 minutes. So every 2,000 eggs, roughly every 2 weeks, how long did it take the kids to find the eggs? If they found them too quickly, they're hidden better. If it takes them too long, then they just lay them on top of the grass. They're not hidden so well. So they want to average anywhere between 8 to 12 minutes for the kids to find these Easter eggs. All right, so that keeps it kind of level. And if more people come up to buy, to get these eggs from the kids, then the only way to really find more eggs quicker is to have more kids. You got to have more kids. You recruit the neighbors' kids and the kids down the block. Then, if they're too quick, then the parents hide them even deeper. Maybe they start digging holes in the yard and putting the eggs down in there. So now there's a bunch of neighborhood kids. Everybody's looking. Now it's really, really hard to find eggs. Okay. Maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe that was the piece of the puzzle I was missing. Maybe I should have asked it not what is Bitcoin mining, but what is Bitcoin? Kids equal computers. Yeah, the miners. Kids are the miners. All right. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe that's the key that I was missing. Let's see. One of the things, we've been on here 49 minutes. Let me get down here to one of these questions because it talked about you got to have a bunch of computers. No longer could you just use a laptop in your home. And I'm assuming some type of mining program because you just don't sit down at Google and say, maybe you can sit down with AI and say, help me find a Bitcoin. We'll ask it that and see what it says real quick. Okay. I asked it because it talked about, a bunch of computers come together to work. You have a bunch of computers. You can't do it just from one laptop. And so I asked it, is this similar in theory to people linking their downtime compute power to look for alien signals from space? And it says, you hit the nail on the head. In theory, they are very similar. Both are forms of distributed computing where a massive complex task is broken into tiny pieces and sent out to thousands of individual computers around the world. The specific project you're thinking of is SETI at home. While they share a DNA, there are some fascinating differences in how they actually work. All right. SETI analyzes radio telescope data for non-random patterns. Bitcoin solves a useless cryptographic puzzle. Well, it can't be useless, man. It makes you $200,000 for every coin you find. The goal, scientific discovery. For Bitcoin, it's securing a financial network and auditing transactions. Hardware, general computers, CPUs and GPUs. But for Bitcoin, highly specialized hardware. And I say it wrong. ASCII is ASIIC. It stands for something different. Incentive for SETI is purely altruistic for the glory of science. And for Bitcoin, it's financial. The competition is collaborative. For SETI, everyone helps the same cause. Bitcoin, competitive. It's a race where only one person wins or one group of people. Harnessing dark compute. Both systems rely on the idea that millions of idle computers are more powerful than any single supercomputer. In the early days of Bitcoin, 2009 to 11, people really did mine using their downtime on home PCs just like SETI. Bitcoin does this through blockchain. Every miner checks every other miner's work to ensure no one is cheating. Seems like there's a lot going on. Bitcoin mining is artificial work. The difficulty of the puzzle is purely there to ensure that blocks are only found every 10 minutes. If everyone's computer got 100 times faster tomorrow, Bitcoin would just make the puzzle 100 times harder. And that go back to the Easter eggs. If all of a sudden a bus showed up and had 50 kids on it, then that's when the parent would be out there digging the holes and making it 50 times harder for any one kid to find an egg. Because Bitcoin mining became so profitable, it actually caused a shortage of the same graphics cards that the SETI scientists needed for their research. By 2020, SETI at home actually stopped sending out new data, partially because they couldn't compete with the massive scale of crypto mining. All right. So apparently, Gridcoin or folding at home. These are projects that actually reward you with crypto for doing scientific research like SETI. Right there might be a good side gig. All right. I'm going to say give me, oh, here we go. Can you find me one Bitcoin see what it says. Hell, I may have just, asked the very simplest, stupidest question that says, well, sure, here's you one. And I just made $210,000 and Robert was here the only one to witness it. Wouldn't that be something? If I asked Jim and I, just go out there and find me a Bitcoin, and it says, well, sure, dude, hold on. All right. I can definitely help you find one, but I should probably warn your wallet first. Finding a whole Bitcoin today is a lot more expensive than it used to be. The price tag. Right now, Bitcoin is trading at approximately $60,000 and $480. It went up $180 while I was doing the show. It's been a wild week in the markets after a massive 6% surge yesterday, fueled by optimism following the State of the Union address and record ETF inflows. The price has stabilized in the $67,000 to $69,000 range. See, this is what I'm talking about. How can you buy a $67 sweater when you may have more or less in Bitcoin because of who you're buying it through? Put that in perspective. While it slows down from an all-time high of over 126,000 we saw last October, it's still a significant find. So, Bitcoin has gone down. That's crazy. If you're looking to acquire a full Bitcoin, you generally have three main paths. Centralized exchange, the easy way. Apps like Coinbase, Kraken, or Strike are the most common. You link your bank account and they handle the finding for you for a small fee, around 0.1% to 1% depending on the platform. Bitcoin ETF, Wall Street. If you don't want to worry about digital keys or wallets, you can buy the iShares Bitcoin Trust or Fidelity Wise Origin through a standard brokerage account like Vanguard or Fidelity. Peer-to-peer, the old school way. You can buy directly from another person using a service like BizQ or RoboStats, though this requires a bit more technical know-how. You don't actually have to buy a whole one. Bitcoin is divisible down to 8 decimal places. The smallest unit is called a Satoshi. Okay, one Bitcoin is worth 1 million Satoshis. I meant mine me one. Oh, I see. You want me to fire up the engines and dig one out of the dirt, digital dirt. As much as I'd love to be your personal high-powered mining rig, I have to be the bearer of old, hard silicone news. I can't actually mine Bitcoin for you. Here's why. He's the brain, not the muscle. Okay. He's not just going to go out there and find me one. Well, how do you cash out a Bitcoin? I assume the same way that you would actually purchase one. So when I said a broker, I was thinking of the peer-to-peer. That's one of the ways that I knew at some point that you could do it. You had to find somebody. It's like, let's just say you had a gold chain and you melted it down into a nugget. And then you were going to take that nugget to a gold exchange. Well, you would have maybe 3 stores in your local area, and you would go and say, how much for this nugget? And they would weigh it and say, okay, I'll give you $50. You say, okay, let me go check with the other two. And one of them will give it to you, pay you $49, one will pay you $50, and one will pay you $51. And the reason the fluctuation might be is the $49 person is only going to keep $5. The $50 guy is going to keep 6, and the $51 guy is going to keep 7. So depending on where you sold or bought your Bitcoin on peer-to-peer, person to person, you might find a broker that charges you more or less to do the transaction. So a lot of that is how much is it worth and how much does it cost you to do the transaction. So ETFs, I don't remember what that stands for, but basically that's doing it through Wall Street just like through a broker. And a centralized exchange. Coinbase, Kraken, or Strike are most common. So you just, I guess, have like you might have Google Wallet, or you might have Apple Pay or something like that. You probably have an app like Coinbase, and you say, I want to, buy coffee with Bitcoin, or I want to buy a house with Bitcoin, and it handles the transaction for you. They're going to give you cash. Right. And so would these other brokerages. Just like if you had a stock, if you had 8 shares of AMC movie theaters, you would go through a broker, your bank would pay their firm the money, it goes up in value, and you sell it through the brokerage. Well, then they sell it on the market, they take the real money and put it back in your account minus their commissions. So, and you still make a profit. That's kind of what they're saying here. Now Bitcoin and all these crypto coins, digital coins have become, more secure and more legitimate. You can do it through Wall Street, or you can do it through an exchange, or you can do it person to person. I would assume that if you can trust the peer-to-peer, that you might save money in fees and transactions and all that stuff, because you're dealing, if it says peer-to-peer, you know what I'm saying, you're dealing more with single, entities than you are, Wall Street or a big, commercial exchange, that kind of stuff. So if you had $67,000 you were wanting to invest, you could shop around potentially through these 3 choices, find out who's going to give you the best deal, lock it in, and say, here's my $67,000. I need whatever the current value is of a Bitcoin. I want 1 Bitcoin. And you buy it through one of these ways, and then you own a Bitcoin, and you have to have it in your wallet. You have to have a security key and all that. That's where these people lose their stuff, and then they lose their access to their wallet, and their Bitcoins are just laying in there out of circulation. They can't access them anymore. And then when you're done, if the price goes up in 6 months, let's say, you earn, let's just say it doubles, because that's the way my brain works. It doubles and you want to cash out, you do the same thing. Instead of buying, you go back to your dude and say, hey, yo, man, this thing doubled in value. I want to sell it. Through that transaction, the money's then, I assume, put back into your checking account, minus the fees and all that stuff. And now you have access to it just like you would your paycheck. So, all right, so it makes a lot more sense to me. They say there's not one controlling boss out there that controls all the Bitcoins, but there is one producer of the Bitcoin. So it's not like what I first started out with, is when it says when people send Bitcoin, those transactions are gathered into a block. Miner user hardware to verify that these transactions are legitimate and that the senders actually have money. It says to add that block to the official record, and this is where it comes into think of the egg again. The egg's not official until it's found. No matter what the parents are doing in the background, making the eggs, hiding the eggs, all that stuff is in the background hidden. The eggs are only legitimate until one of the kids find it. And then once it's found, it actually said, oh yes, there is actually an egg. So then it becomes part of the block. So miners must solve a complex computational puzzle called the proof of work. It's essentially a guessing game where the computers try to find a specific hexadecimal number that meets certain criteria. The first miner to solve the puzzle wins. They get to add the block to the chain and are rewarded. So I'm going to use my analogy. Nobody knows if a bear poops in the wood until somebody steps in it next to a log out in the woods, right? If a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise? You can't answer that unless there's somebody there to hear it hit the ground. Same thing with an egg. Did the parents really make it and hide it? Nobody knows that fact until one of the kids finds it and said, yes, here's an egg. That's what the miners do. Yes, here's an egg. Now we know it's legit. I'm going to take it. I'm going to put it in the basket for customers to come by and invest in or buy a sweater off eBay with or whatever. You know, I think it's kind of a smoke and mirrors game too. Robert says it's an elaborate scheme, but brilliant. And you know, like the credit card, all right, when it first came out, however long ago that was, or the check, or the Western Union, you know, wiring money to people. I'm sure when it first came out, people were going, what? No. I'm going to ride to Dodge City and I'm going to pay the marshal, you know, cash on hand for my fines. I'm not going to wire the marshal money. You see, oh, I don't trust that. And I don't, you know, maybe we're the skeptics just like that. You know, the telegraph will never work. The telephone will never work. Cell phones will never work. It's a scheme to get your money, and in a way it is a scheme to get your money. But, you know, those turned out to be legitimate. But like I said, to me it makes a little more sense now knowing it's still skeptical because it wasn't like Facebook was created by these four guys or this one guy, or Apple wasn't created by these three guys. No, that one guy. It was in a garage. No, you know, it was in a closet. Whatever it might be. You know, those seem more legit because they're out in the open. You know, they know who runs it. They know who has it. But this, like it said, this, whatever name that was, Nakamoto, is the name used by the presumed pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin. So why wouldn't you want to be known as the person or persons that created it unless it is a scam, unless it's some elaborate way to collect billions and trillions of dollars that's floating around and then you press a button on your computer keyboard with your backdoor into the whole Bitcoin thing, and it sucks all those Bitcoins and all those transactions and all those things back home. And, you know, whoever pushed the button now has quadrillion billions of dollars, and everybody that's bought and paid with Bitcoin and stuff is just flat broke. It could happen. You know, it could happen. In my book, it could happen. So anyway. All right. I have rambled on about stupid stuff that I don't know anything about, except now I understand a little bit more. Parents may or may not be hiding eggs until the kids find them. Then they know it's legit. And the kids get rewarded for finding the eggs, and then the eggs go out into circulation and people buy sweaters with them off of eBay. There you have it. So I think I'm going to get 4 or 5 laptops together, and I'm going to load up whatever scientific puzzle cracking hashing software there is for that, and I'm going to let them run 24/7 days a week for the next 20 years and see if I can find me a partial egg or SETI or, you know, intelligent life out there. All right, Robert. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming by and listening to my Easter egg hunt story. Apparently, that's the only way my brain works. It's very simple, little things that I can remember. And I mean, I think that's a pretty good analogy, because the eggs are hidden until the kids find them, and nobody knows if they're really there or not until it happens. And then once the kids find them and verify the work that the parents put into it, it's like, shoot, yeah, eggs are real. Easter eggs are real. Look at mine. It's so pretty. And then you go off and you use them in La La Land. So, yeah. Bitcoins are Easter eggs, dude. That is the long and short of it. All right. Thank you again for coming by, Robert. I appreciate the support. Remember those guys, Bartles and James? We appreciate your support. Yep. All right. Till next time. Maybe I'll know less or more about that. So I think the question should have been, don't tell me about Bitcoin mining. I jumped into the middle of that pool. I should have said, what in the devil? How did Bitcoin get started, and is it legit? Right? That's probably what I should have said. All right. I mean, you could have, you know, stopped me from rambling for 45 minutes until I figured out the Easter egg thing. All righty then. Appreciate it. Let's push the button once.